Hi, folks. This is Mark Smith with Family Tree Brand Life Coaches. And I have a very interesting, unique topic today. I have not seen this topic on any of the YouTube channels that focus on narcissistic abuse syndrome. And it is mentioned in some of the professional journals and books, but not with narcissistic abuse in mind. So, the topic of the video today is predatory harm anxiety. Predatory harm anxiety, or it's also referred to as predatory death anxiety. I believe that there's millions of people out there who are staying stuck in this condition and that they're being misdiagnosed and mistreated. Misdiagnosed as just being depressed or having borderline personality disorder or even being bipolar. So, let me tell you the story of how I became familiar with the concept of predatory harm anxiety. I do read your comments out there, and I don't consider myself to be some big hotshot expert who has all the answers. And if I don't like your comments, I just dismiss them. That's now, if you're disrespectful, I might dismiss your comments. But I got a long comment from a woman in Denmark named Annie Marie. And I'm going to read her a little bit about her qualifications, and then I'm going to read a letter that the email or comment that I got from her, and that's just been gnawing at me. I think predatory harm anxiety is something that many of us suffer from. But Anne Marie said, I got shattered as a child, and I knew by instinct at age 6 that I was not loved, welcomed, and if I stayed there, I would die. I knew that my family was severely fucked up, but I did not know why. I just thought that was all my fault. Of course she did. So school sent me to a psychologist, and the psychologist taught me about predatory death anxiety. Has anybody ever heard of predatory death anxiety or predatory harm anxiety? Send some messages in. And I've been, uh, Annie Marie says, studying psychology and psychiatry ever since. And I have over 30 years of knowledge. I'm trained in psychoanalysis, both Freud and Jung, Gestalt therapy, family systems therapy, meaning Murray Bowen, and I'm currently being trained in neuro-linguistic programming. And I don't work as a therapist currently, but I think perhaps I should. So that's Annie Marie from Denmark, and just some of her experience and how she come to learn about predatory death anxiety or predatory harm. I like calling it predatory harm anxiety because for me, I'm not really worried about dying. I'm just worried about being harmed. So, uh, dear Mark, Annie Marie, this is the first message she sent to me. I followed your journey on YouTube and watched your recent video concerning relapse. I know that you said your complex PTSD relapse was partially due to your fear of abandonment being triggered by your wife's absence. Renda went to on site for a week of treatment, and they take your phones when you go there. So, your mother, if I recall it correctly, left you alone screaming until your face turned purple when you were an infant, correct? So now you think and feel that you have a fear of abandonment. I would like to tell you that that conclusion is only on the surface level correct. The underlying core or issue or emotion is not what you think it is, and here's why. Complex PTSD and anxiety disorders, for that matter, stem from one underlying emotion, and that is death anxiety, especially what is known as predatory death anxiety. Predatory death anxiety arises from the fear of being harmed. It's the most basic and oldest form of death anxiety. Predatory death anxiety is evoked by a variety of dangerous situations that put one at risk or threaten one's survival. These traumas may be physical, psychological, or both. Predatory death anxiety mobilizes an individual's adaptive resources and leads to a flight or flight response. Active efforts to combat the danger or attempts to escape the threatening situation. Freud focused on death anxiety, and she shared a quote, thanatos, which is death anxiety, how the ego struggles to maintain itself, against you. Mark, your fear of abandonment is a cover-up for the underlying death anxiety you felt as an infant when your mother abandoned you. If you can fix the root cause, the death anxiety, you can have a more solid recovery. And then she talks a little bit about treatment, but that's going to be for the next video, some treatment options for the underlying feeling in abandonment. Another leading writer about predatory death anxiety is Robert Langs, and he said that's the first of 3 types of death anxiety. So some comments, and I just have lots of comments about Annie Marie's message that she left for me. First of all, I don't want anybody to feel any kind of shame if you have some complex PTSD relapse. What I was trying to share is few of us is this a sprint up a mountain where we do everything right and we get better in a short amount of time. This is a chronic, debilitating, massive, dominating, dark condition, and it is something that almost all of us are going to suffer relapse from time to time. I think Annie Marie misunderstood in my video what I said caused my relapse. It wasn't being away from Renda. It was a 3-month period from Thanksgiving until the middle of January, where between the holidays, moving to our condo in Indianapolis, having chosen to host several large parties at our new home that we'd been in 4 days, and then the things going on with my daughter, who was going through a major bipolar episode. So all that was going on at the same time, and I just sort of didn't get sleep. I abused my body. I didn't eat right. I wasn't doing meditations. So that's what led to my symptoms of complex PTSD. So some of Annie Marie's comments were taken from Wikipedia, where it says, Predatory death anxiety arises from the fear of being harmed. Do you guys understand what I mean by being afraid of being harmed again? Um, Predatory death anxiety is evoked by a variety of dangerous situations that put one at risk or it feels like it threatens your survival. These traumas can be physical, psychological, or both. It's like you're a puppy that's been abused and a stranger comes into the living room and the puppy hides under the coffee table. Um, there's also my one, I would say really my favorite author is Irvin Yalom, the great 85 now year old therapist who he focuses a lot upon death anxiety. So Annie Marie says that complex PTSD and anxiety disorders, and I'm sure she would say narcissistic abuse syndrome, stem from this main emotion of predatory death anxiety. And it arises from the fear of being harmed. And it's the most basic and the oldest of death anxieties. So she says your fear of abandonment is a cover up for the underlying death anxiety you felt as a little infant when you were abandoned by your mother. So I look back in time, 58 years, 58 and a half years, and I think of that infant who was let to sit out in the backyard and rage and scream. And I agree with Annie Marie. I think I was screaming for my life. I thought in the molecules of my being, I think I feared death. So, what I'm talking about is when a predator sucker punches you in the face so hard that it damages you in a very primal way. So, picture this, and I know many of you have lived through this: a normal man or woman that you thought you married or you thought you became engaged to, who one day takes off a mask and they're a 5,000 pound raging gorilla with massive hands and they just stomp you to death into a billion pieces. There's such a shock that you thought somebody who laid next to you in bed, who gave you cards for your anniversary, who gave you presents for Christmas, who were in your inner sanctum of people that you trusted, actually were a whole nother being. And they not only didn't care for your well being, they were the instrument to bring trauma and bruising and damage. Peter Levine says there's trauma is like there's a tiger in the room. There's a deadly tiger in the room ready to attack. Last night, I watched The Revenant again. Brenda and I were just chilling on Sunday night and we watched The Revenant. And you remember the bear attack? So here was Glass, the main character, and he just walking through the woods. He sees two little cubs, and then he turns and he's just viciously attacked. That scene with the bear attacking Leonardo DiCaprio's character in The Revenant, that's what we go through, isn't it? We're torn apart. Our neck is cut and bleeding. Our shoulder is ripped almost, our arms are almost ripped off. We're destroyed and shocked. Our whole system is in shock. And then another good picture of the horror that we go through is when the narcissist in the movie stabbed and killed Glass's son right in front of him. And he was strapped down and he was debilitated after recently being attacked by the bear. And he saw this horrific narcissist stab his son to death. And that's the kind of loss and betrayal that we feel. There's somebody who we thought was safe, whose level of ability to damage us and destroy us and stab us and take away the things that are most dear are just beyond shock. So, predatory harm anxiety is always expecting the other shoe to drop. I started the morning well, got a new referral, and had some time to take care of myself and get focused. But then there was this phone call coming from an unknown number, and it was, "Mr. Smith, we have sent you 2 letters. It doesn't seem like you've received them. Can you call us?" And so when you have this predatory harm anxiety, frankly, that it sort of freaked me out, because I'm thinking that sounds like some bad shit. And that's what we do. It's having dread in the pit of your stomach. And then many of us, after the initial bear attack, after the initial stabbing in the gut of what is precious to us, then we're ill-equipped to fight, and many times we get further attacked from other narcissists coming at us from multiple directions. So, and when that happens, it's like surreal. It's like, can this really be my life? The character in The Revenant, he not only had to go through the bear attack and see his son killed, but then he would crawl, to try to move forward. And that's what many of us do. We're bleeding. We're almost dead. We're starving. And to get where we're going, all we can do is crawl. And then more attacks, more arrows. This man had 2 recovery buddies, the Indian who found him and saved his life, and the captain. And his recovery buddies, narcissistic abuse, it takes people out. And so he found his first recovery buddy hung by a group of narcissists, and the second recovery buddy was the captain, and this initial bad guy narcissist shot him and then scalped him. So his recovery buddies were killed. He had to ride a horse off a cliff. Then the narcissist stabbed him in the leg, stabbed him in the hand. And in order to survive, he had to stuff himself into the belly of a horse to keep warm. That's what many of us have gone through. And for me, it's been 2 years and 9 months. But if you don't heal the underlying causes of it, and you don't maintain a healthy recovery process, you will be dominated by this predatory harm anxiety. It's like you go into fear spirals where you picture the worst possible scenario happening, and you start feeling a little bit of fear, and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you have terror. It's not fear, it's terror. It's knowing that the world is not a safe place. It's having hypervigilance around your environment. Distrust doesn't even come close to what I'm talking about. It's walking on eggshells, terrified about what can happen next. It can lead to a timidness. Um, I've been away from playing basketball for a while, and part of it is with this predatory harm anxiety. Um, I have a lack of confidence in myself, even around playing basketball. So I've been playing with lesser competition and losing weight and working out, and I'm going to overcome that shyness. But when you're always expecting the other shoe to drop, you have this constant sense of anxiety and muscle armoring. It's like your anxiety, it might go to your neck, it might go to your shoulder. In my case, it sort of settles in my side. Um, and part of the death anxiety is you fear suicide because you don't know if you are strong enough to take on another onslaught, to be attacked by another grizzly bear, to be stabbed in the back by another narcissist. So it can lead to sense of helplessness and powerlessness. Part of the cure, and the next video is going to be about the cure, but it's about having what we call agency or power, personal power, being in a state of action or exerting power and influence. And that's what happens with people who are debilitated with this predatory harm anxiety is they don't feel a sense of agency. They have an inability to relax. They have a dark cloud of hopelessness and despair that just carries around with them. You fear that your loved ones might come to harm. Imagine the predatory harm anxiety after 9/11. You know, in the city of New York and in our whole country, it's like we were all terrified, and we were just wondering what's coming next. Do you guys remember that? The week of 9/11, I remember it was a Tuesday, and we had groups on Tuesday, and a lot of people didn't want to come to group because they were afraid to leave home. Imagine the predatory death and harm anxiety after the Holocaust, when the most horrific damage and onslaught toward people by narcissists happened. Part of this fear that you start to feel and this predatory harm is you start to have financial fears and financial obsessions. Last Monday, I had some time at home, and I was at a low point in my confidence and recovery from my 3-month relapse, and somebody stuck an envelope in our door. And I pulled out the envelope, and in very aggressive language, it said, "You are going to be charged. You damaged the elevator." Didn't say who it was from. It didn't say, "Dear Mr. Smith." It just said, "You're going to be charged." And that, I didn't know if they were going to charge me $100 or $1,000 or more. And that is an example of that fear spiral where somebody sticking an envelope in your door can tap into that fear. So, like I said, this is a horrific condition to be in. Uh, my wife and I on Saturday night we went to the movies for the first time in a long time, and we saw the movie The Post. And Meryl Streep, Tom Hanks, great movie, great movie. And Meryl Streep played Katharine Graham, and she did not suffer from predatory harm anxiety because right at a point where she could lose everything and all of her advisors were telling her to look out for herself, she did the right and the courageous thing. And she was heroic in her courage and her standing up to the powers that be. So, as I said, I think million peoples are dominated in this condition of predatory harm anxiety. You've been harmed once, twice. You were harmed by your parents, and then that first narcissist was the bear attack. The second narcissist was the narcissist that stabbed what was most precious to you and killed it. And many of us have been through many, many narcissistic attacks. So this condition, it doesn't go away on its own. It can stay for decades. And like I said, people are misdiagnosed as having anxiety or depression. Anxiety and depression are symptoms. They're not really diseases. And if you've been attacked so viciously and so unexpectedly, when I was with this fiance of mine for 6.5 years, I had no clue who she was and how horrifically aggressive and hateful and harmful, and that she was the bear. She was the narcissist with the knife. So, as I said, what's tragic is there are millions of people out there who've resigned themselves to a broken heart and a broken brain who do not know how to overcome this. And I'll be talking in the next video about some of the best treatments for predatory harm anxiety, but also talking about self-care and having agency. So let me know if you guys resonate with this, the sense of impending doom, this sense of not being able to walk tall and confident in the world, like a warrior, this sense of terror. It also can show up in nightmares. And you walk with a limp, as DiCaprio's character did walk. He walked with a limp because the scars were so profound and so wounding. So I hope this has spoken to you. This is something that dominates many of us in our culture, and it hasn't really been given a name because it's sort of bigger than complex PTSD. It's more specialized. And, narcissistic abuse syndrome focuses on it, but I don't know that everybody who has narcissistic abuse syndrome necessarily suffers this much terror and this much fear and this much obsession and are so dominated by it. And we're going to talk about getting better and treating this so that you don't have to be so afraid. So thank you for watching today, and I'm wishing you peace. I know what you're going through. I'm wishing you calm. I'm wishing you a sense of safety in the world. and I'm wishing you a sense of community. God bless you. Bye-bye.